Stevie is the reason you're not in the band. Irving informed me that she had given them an ultimatum. Lindsey leaves, or I leave. On stage, Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham's chemistry was evident to all. They were blind to the fight waged. Behind closed doors, she described him in her fantasies. About her, he penned Go Your Own Way. However, those tunes were only the start. Stevie eventually revealed the truth in 2021. The jealousy, the sabotage, and the reason behind her $1 million ultimatum to the band. She even disclosed the precise time she made the decision to call it quits. His response demonstrated that she had made the proper decision. She was born at Good Samaritan Hospital in Phoenix, Arizona. On May 26, 1948, her name was Nicks. Stephanie Lynn, her father, Jess, was a rising business mogul who rose to executive vice president of Greyhound and president of Armour-Dial. However, because of his job, the family was constantly on the go. They never stayed put. Stevie learned early on that nothing lasts forever from that kind of life. Not even her name remained the same. She was unable to pronounce Stephanie as a toddler. She therefore went by Ted. That eventually turned into Stevie. It became stuck. Additionally, her identity would continue to change. Much like her name, someone extremely close to her brought music into her life. Aaron Jess, A.J. Nicks Sr., her grandfather, was born on May 28, 1892. Although A.J., a country musician, never achieved stardom, he had faith in Stevie. He paid her 50 cents a week to sing with him when she was 5 years old and had lost her front teeth. "You're a harmony singer, honey," he said to her. They rehearsed tunes like Dorsey Burnett's It's Late. Her mother forbade him from taking her on tour as an elderly couple with his grandchild. She wished to shield Stevie from such a life. A.J., however, ignited a fire within her. He demonstrated to her that music was more than simply sound. You have to build it and feel it. Stevie's life was constantly on the go due to her dad's work. The family resided in a number of Californian locations as well as Phoenix, Los Angeles, Albuquerque, El Paso, Salt Lake City, and Chicago. Stevie occasionally stayed behind to complete his coursework. She referred to herself as a nomad who has been traveling throughout her entire life in her song Candlebright. She needed to develop her ability to adapt swiftly, make connections with others quickly, and accept beginning over. She developed the emotional fortitude she would eventually need when things went tough in the music industry, thanks to that frequent mobility. Everything changed on her 16th birthday. The year was 1964. Her parents paid for tuition and rented her a Goya guitar. Her first boyfriend ended their relationship on the same day. She used the heartache as inspiration for her debut song, I've Lost and Loved, and while I'm sad, I'm not depressed. The lyrics were straightforward, honest, and unvarnished. The boy I previously loved was amazing and sincere, but he fell in love with someone else before falling in love with me. At that moment, something clicked. She was more than just a music lover. Her parents were aware that she was a songwriter. From then on, something had changed. Music was more than just a pastime. She had a mission. For someone who would go on to become a rock star, her musical preferences were surprising. She grew up in the 1950s and early 1960s, listening to Top 40 radio. She adored girl groups such as the Shangri-Las, Martha Reeves, Cheryl's, and Van. She was plagued by the song Remember, walking in the sand in the nicest manner. She listened intently to the sounds. Next came the impact of her grandfather's country music. Her sound was influenced by this blend of pop, soul, folk, and country. That explains why her subsequent songs seamlessly merged different genres. It also explains why, decades later, she was able to collaborate with artists like Tom Petty, Don Henley, and even Harry Styles. Her voice had no boundaries, but after she met Lindsey Buckingham, things really started to come together. The year was 1966. Lindsey was a junior, while Stevie was a senior. They first connected during a Young Life gathering, which served as a weekly catalyst for teen socialization. Lindsey was playing California Dreaming while seated in a person's living room. After hearing him, Stevie approached. She didn't skip a beat as she joined in the harmony. She went on to say, I thought he was a darling. They sounded as if they were meant to be together. Nevertheless, they didn't cross paths again for 2 years following that evening. The time wasn't right, but the magic was. Then everything changed in 1968. Lindsey gave Stevie a call. Fritz, his band, was in need of a lead singer. Originally a high school act, the ensemble was now scheduling increasingly larger shows. Yes, Stevie replied. Up until that moment, she had been performing folk songs, but Fritz was psychedelic rock. She was opening for giants like Jefferson Airplane and Janis Joplin within weeks after joining. She was on stage in front of thousands of people. One day, and the next, she was performing soft folk tunes. She didn't even realize she needed the rock and roll crash course that Fritz provided her. Lindsey and Stevie did not have a romantic relationship during their 3.5 years in Fritz. Actually, Stevie had other relationships. There was an unwritten rule in the band. She was unfit. Well, however, they also did not want outsiders to approach her. The other three would literally pick that person apart if they started hanging out with me, she claimed. The band was worn down by the ongoing strain. In several respects, it was a relief when Fritz broke up in 1971. Last, Stevie and Lindsey had the freedom to explore their relationship both musically and personally. However, an unforeseen event occurred as they were preparing their next course of action. Mononucleosis struck Lindsey. Not a simple case. His was over a year long. Stevie took on the role of caregiver. She wrote songs, planned their future, and took care of him while cooking, cleaning, and entertaining. They grew closer throughout this time together than they ever could have through performing. They were more than simply bandmates now. They worked together as a team. Although they didn't fully comprehend it at the time, they both sensed that their partnership had grown. Their move to Los Angeles was delayed by that illness. But it also provided them with time to mature, reflect, and prepare for the future. They had already opened for Santana, Chicago, Jimi Hendrix, and the Steve Miller Band. By the time Fritz concluded, they had performed at iconic locations like the Whitsun and the Fillmore. Stevie relished every second. When I ever saw Jimi Hendrix perform, I recall thinking, I want to wear white fringe. She remarked, I want to wear a lovely scarf in my hair. Fritz recorded a number of songs, such as Where Was I? And Take Advantage of Me, but they never put out an album. Stevie's most recent piece was about being excluded and betrayed. It alluded to the level of emotion she would eventually infuse into each Fleetwood Mac album. Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham's aspirations of becoming famous musicians were dashed when they landed in Los Angeles at the end of 1972. The majority of the aspirants in the city were impoverished. Stevie took on several jobs in order to make ends meet, working as a waitress at the Copper Penny, Clementine's, and Bob's Big Boy. She even paid the bills by cleaning houses. Producer Keith Olsen, who was working on their CD, owned one of the homes. By day, she was cleaning his floors, and at night, she was recording his voice. At the time I joined Fleetwood Mac, I was fairly mature. I wouldn't have been able to handle overnight success otherwise, she subsequently stated. Due to financial constraints, they frequently shared a single pizza or hamburger for supper. Stevie thought Lindsey should give his music his all attention. She covered the bills, allowing him to practice day and night while lying on the floor with his guitar. Their debut album, Buckingham Nicks, which was recorded at Sound City Studios and distributed by Polydor, was slated to be their big break in 1973. The record has it all. 10 excellent tunes, powerful performances, with session musicians like Waddy Wachtel and Jim Kellner. However, the record was a failure. After a swift tug, Polydor let them fall. Their debts continued to mount while their names receded into the background. Even Stevie's name was misspelled as Stevie on the cover. In spite of its failure, the album gradually gained cult status and was republished years later. However, it simply meant additional disappointment at the time. Lindsey and Stevie were devastated. Nothing had come of all the sacrifices they had made. For the sessions, they were still in debt to Sound City. It felt like the bottom of the world. Their relationship was severely strained as a result of that failure. Living in poverty and under continual stress, they began to argue loudly and violently until Lindsey fell asleep on the floor and Stevie remained in the bedroom with her dog. Lindsey wouldn't accept anything that felt like selling out, and Stevie kept working at low-paying jobs. I was completely committed to making it happen for him, she subsequently stated. She didn't care if she was the one serving dinner or cleaning houses since she had such faith in him. However, that disparity led to animosity. Even if she didn't express it at the time, it still pained her. The anguish continued to reverberate in their lyrics and music years later. Their relationship with Keith Olsen remained solid in spite of the conflict.